Assassin's Creed Mirage is on the horizon, and with the long-awaited return to classic Assassin's Creed finally getting explored in more depth, I thought it was only right to throw my 2 cents into this game, and outline the aspects that recent entries in the series introduced that this supposed series revival needs to do away with. Before we get into the video, it would really be appreciated if you could hit like, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on. And without further ado, let's look at the 5 things that Assassin's Creed Mirage does not need. Being first introduced back in 2014 in Unity, the idea of leveling in Assassin's Creed made sense to a certain extent, as the leveling mechanic was woven into a semi-immersive mechanic that utilised the in-universe ranking system of the Brotherhood. This was an element of the Brotherhood that was of vital importance in the first game and returned to an extent with Assassin Recruits in Brotherhood and Revelations, but returning to a system in which the player has to work their way up the ranks of the Order by carrying out specific tasks, such as certain kinds of assassinations, silent kills, stealthy getaways and daring stunts, was an interesting idea. However, like all things in Unity, this potentially interesting mechanic swiftly became watered down and sterilized in the following games, with Syndicate incorporating a simple number-based leveling system that acted as a restriction on the player, as opposed to an immersive element. Then, as the series saw its soft reboot come about, the once world-building leveling became nothing more than run-of-the-mill mediocre RPG skill tree, one that did little in the way of tangible improvement. The system instead prioritized the player's arbitrary level number above all else, converting the game's difficulty curve from one of skill to one of playtime. By the time Odyssey and Valhalla released, it became clear that the leveling systems within these games detracted far more than they provided, with the fractional improvements of the latter's skill tree barely being noticeable. If Mirage intends to craft a linear immersive Assassin's Creed experience, it needs to do away with the bloated and arbitrary leveling systems the series is now infamous for, and either run the game entirely without any leveling, or reintroduce an immersive Brotherhood-based mechanic that fleshes out the Order in Baghdad. Speaking of immersion, or more specifically a severe lack of immersion, the mythological elements of Assassin's Creed Valhalla time and time again completely destroyed any level of suspension of disbelief the player had, and provided a boring and repetitive gameplay loop that proved to be comically written. The worst part about these mythological segments, taking place in Asgard and Jotunheim respectively, is that they acted as the precipice of the modern day storytelling of Valhalla, which, let me remind you, is in fact the main story of Assassin's Creed. The Norse Isu's creation of a 7th Earth-saving device is a huge revelation to longtime fans of the series, and is essential to understand the overarching story of the game. But in order to have this understanding, 5 hours of trudging around the terribly designed mythical worlds was forced upon the player. Mythological elements definitely have their place in Assassin's Creed, however they should be always presented under the guise of the science fiction lore established by prior games. Neither the Isu nor their technology is magic, but in presenting these segments through an entirely mythical lens, the game implies to the average player that that is the context in which these events happened, and not within a highly technically advanced world in which a super race keeps humans as servants. Not only does it present it dishonestly, but the heightened, bordering childish presentation of the Isu arcs takes so much of the gravitas and mystery that are intrinsic to the Isu away. Compare an 8-foot ghost of a mysterious figure in a white dress appearing in the halls of the catacombs of Rome with Blue Juno. It's not quite the same, is it? Mirage, if it's to tell an Isu story, which, considering the backstory of Basim, is essential, then it must do away with any mythological presentations, and showcase its ancient elements with maturity, accuracy, care, and above all else, within the right genre. Now, this one's slightly more tongue-in-cheek, but it definitely still applies. Crouching is an aspect of stealth that fans have coveted since the very first game, and since it was finally truly introduced in Unity, the respect of the franchise as a stealth series seems to have grown. However, this late addition to the series has been used time and time again to argue against the original revolutionary social stealth mechanic that the games pioneered. The truth is, Assassin's Creed just isn't a series that requires crouching or a heavy focus on the physical environment for its stealth to thrive. It's blending in with the crowds, not simply just by standing out of view, but by maintaining a low profile, maintaining social norms, and disappearing before you're noticed. It's becoming that ghostly figure weaving in and out and over buildings, refusing to allow your true intentions to slip. Valhalla, as half-baked as its attempt at social stealth was, did at the very least lean on these elements somewhat, and if they can be incorporated into a functional detection system, then Mirage can provide a stealth experience that captures the most unique element of the franchise. This is a bit of a pet peeve of mine, because the concept of a hit list of various Templars built up in a hierarchy that you're tasked with eliminating is an idea that is central to the fantasy of most of these games. However, the way in which this set of missions were incorporated in the previous 2 games highlights the worst thing about each respective entry: their tedious lengths. 30 to 40 to 50 targets, each essentially faceless and without personality, doesn't exactly provide the most engaging experience, especially after hours of tracking down these random NPCs. That being said, the way in which you have to track them down, first investigating clues, then scouting out their location, is absolutely perfect. So Mirage must find a happy medium in this now central set of missions, not dragging them out endlessly or making them faceless, emotionless encounters, but still fleshing out that assassin fantasy. To do this, I'd probably suggest incorporating the Order of the Ancients checklist more akin to the AC Black Flag Templar hunts, with a set of narrative missions and side characters that flesh out both orders and give some additional motivation to the player to engage in the missions, outside of simple completionism. Not only would this provide a fantastic gameplay experience, but it could also tie directly into Basim's story. A lot of people may disagree with me here, as the combat of recent entries in the series have been widely praised and adored, but to me, the special abilities that both Odyssey and Valhalla brought us acted more as distractions from the actual combat experience than anything else. Too often, I found myself overly reliant on the abilities as get out of jail free cards, concerning myself more with finding more powerful abilities rather than seeking out challenges to improve my skill. From what we've seen of Basim in combat, he's a distinguished fighter with a wide arsenal of strategies and skills, and so I'd far rather see improvement in the combat come from learning these skills and abilities in an immersive way, as Basim is introduced to the Brotherhood and grows into a master assassin. Learning how to flourish his sword with skill and grace should be a case of practice, not the result of a randomized in-world collectible. Basim could end up being the most technically sound combatant we've seen in the series, so why waste that opportunity in return of an epic wolf attack? But of course, these are all just my opinions, and I'm sure plenty of people will disagree with me, so if you do, let me know why in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit like, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on. And with all that being said, I've been Joe, aka Founder Scarab, and I will see you in the next one.